One of the picks the Blue Jackets made last night was great. The other one was a little bit more confusing, but not necessarily a bad one. Let's talk about last night's draft experience on Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, obviously, it was the NHL Draft last night. Lots happened. It was a very eventful day. Obviously, the Blue Jackets were in on Noah Dobson until they weren't. They made the trade for Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood, which I'm not going to get into a ton of detail about here. I have already talked about it in a little bonus episode yesterday, but a confusing move, I think, for a lot of people. And then the draft. Obviously, the Blue Jackets had talked a lot about, well, maybe we'll move up. Like maybe we'll package 14 and 20. We got offers to move up into the 8 to 13 range. Maybe we'll move down. Maybe we'll trade the picks for a roster player. Like lots of smoke, you know. None of it turned out to really be fire. I do think the fact that Jackson Smith, who is the player that they took at 14, was the guy that they wanted. And if it looked like he was going to be taken before 14, I do wonder if they would have pulled the trigger on a trade. But he ended up going all the way to 14, which is honestly shocking to me. I really thought that he would go top 10. I know that Bob McKenzie had him ranked, I think, 11th or 12th. 12th. He was the third defenseman off the board, which feels about right. He was my third favorite defenseman, obviously after Schaefer and Merker, who I really liked, but he went at 9. There were other players that I liked at 14, but not players that Waddell was going to draft, right? Like, I loved Victor Eklund, and he was still there at 14, and the Blue Jackets absolutely were not going to draft him, but it's beside the point. I liked Smith a lot. Ironically, not a guy that I got a chance to talk about in my draft previews. Because again, he was a guy that I was like, oh yeah, no, he's great, but he's probably going to go, between 5 and 10. So didn't even talk about him, but he is a great all-round defenseman. He is capable of putting up the points. He had, I think, 60 points near enough last year. He had 54 points in 68 games, in the WHL, which for a defenseman is great. Again, of the draft eligibles, he was the third defenseman to go. Second from the WHL, the guy that went above him, Radim Merker, had played 5 points in 43 games. Matthew Schaefer had 22 points in 17 games. Obviously, he missed a ton of the season with that broken shoulder or clavicle. That being said, he puts up the points, but he's not like a slouch in his own zone either. Like, he is an extremely good two-way defenseman. He is responsible in his own zone. He is a great puck mover. Great skate. Like, that might be one of his better assets. Is he is an extremely smooth skater, extremely mobile, and again, because he's 6'3", I think a lot of people are like, oh no, he skates well for a big guy. No, he just skates well, right? And this is such a quintessential Don Waddell pick, right? Like, we saw this last year with all of the players that they took. I think they took 5 or 6 players in the draft last year, and every single one of them, they had size, and scouts were like, yeah, great skater. So I'm unsurprised that Jackson Smith was ranked so highly by the Blue Jackets. Again, I am surprised that he was there at 14, but I think Don Waddell is thrilled with this pick because it is just such a Don Waddell pick. Projected as a top 4 defenseman, which is great. Probably a few years away. He's going to Penn State next year, which is good news. And I talked about this on the clipping station that I did last night. I think this is a really great move for him. He's one of those players that needs to work on a couple of things, but I think they're things that he can work on as he gets older as he gets bigger, and obviously now he's going to go from playing with 16 to 20-year-olds to playing with like 18 to 25-year-olds. There's not a lot of 25-year-olds in the NCAA, but the NCAA, but they are there, right? So I think this is great for him. I think taking that step to play against slightly bigger, more mature, more physical players is good. I'm going to be really interesting to see if the production is still there. But my guess is that production is not something that he really has to work on, right? Like, again, he's not going to be, he's what, on over 3/4 of a point a game? Like, for a defenseman, that's insane. He's not going to be that kind of point producer in the NHL immediately, right? Like, he might get there, but the offense is not what he has to work on necessarily, I think, right? Something he does have to work on, he does occasionally do the Damon Severson thing of just making the most boneheaded turnover that you can ever imagine. Doesn't happen nearly as often as Damon Severson, and also he's 18 years old. So, like, again, it's something that I think you do it enough times and you'll realize, oh, I can't make that pass. I think I can make that pass, but I know that I can't because I've tried to do it 10 times before and it only worked like 9 of those 10 times, right? Discipline is an issue as well, but again, he's 17, 18. He's playing in the WHL, which is not the most physical of leagues, but he is physical, throws his weight around, but not like at the sake of, not just like, he throws his weight around, not just for the sake of throwing his weight around, right? Like, yes, he needs to work on his discipline. He takes some stupid penalties, but he also knows, I think, when to use his body and when to not, which is great. And again, discipline at this age, I feel like, is definitely something that can be worked out of the game, right? When you're not quite, when you're 17, 18 and you are like eager to do everything all the time, especially if you're a highly ranked player, I think that there's something in like, and I see this, this might be, recency bias or confirmation bias, but I see it in players who are, taken in the NHL draft and they just chill out a little bit in their D+1 year, right? Like they realize, oh, I've made it. Now I don't have to try so hard. And that's not to say that he won't try hard, but I think there's a real difference between trying too hard and trying hard, right? And I think that Smith sometimes skirts that line, not all the time. Sometimes skirts that line. I think him realizing that actually he can take a step back and not have to do everything on the ice, I think will also be really good for his game. So just to kind of recap, the pick, I love it. I think it's great. It's not the pick that I would have made, but for of the players that were available and the players that I thought were likely, Smith is absolutely the best player that they could have taken there. Again, Bob McKenzie had him ranked 12th. Tony Ferrari, who, we know and love on this show, he had him at 8th on his list. And I just wanted to read what he had to say about Smith, because I feel like, again, Tony's one of my favorite guys in the prospect industry, and he always says a lot of really smart, fun things. So Smith is arguably the best transition defender in the class, shutting things down with his skating and stick work while closing out physically when needed. He's a more than capable puck mover who displays some creativity in his evasion of forecheckers and uses head fakes and shimmies to evade pressure. His offensive game flashes some impressive passing and even some willingness to attack downhill, has an excellent shot, doesn't force himself to fire slap shots into traffic. He feathers wristers and snapshots accurately through the mess in front, hoping to create havoc in tight. He has plenty of potential outcomes as he has the tools to become a very well-rounded defender. Like, that sounds great to me. Yes, he's probably a couple of years away. Like, my guess is next year he's at Penn State. The year after that, he might do another year at Penn State, honestly. And then I don't know. I haven't done the math on whether he is going to be. I don't believe he's going to be AHL eligible at the end of, or at the start of the season after next. So the start of the 26-27 season. I don't know that he'll be AHL eligible. He doesn't turn 20 until May 2027, which makes me feel a million years old. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, Defensemen need longer to cook than forwards. I think this is a guy that they're hoping is going to step right in as the window is either opening or has just opened, right? Like if this is a guy ready to make to be an impact player by like the 2028 season, I feel fine with that, right? Great player, fun player. Definitely going to be one to watch in Penn State next year. I'm really interested to see how his game adapts and if he can find that consistency that he's looking for and figure out that no, he can't make that boneheaded turnover. Which he doesn't do a lot. It's not like David Severson where he feels like he's doing it at least once a game. It's just like every so often he's like, I could make that pass, and he just super can't, right? So that's the main issue that I have, and it's not even a really big issue. It's something that will come out as and when it comes out, right? Like he'll work it out of his game or he won't. If we're still having this conversation this time next year after a full season at Penn State, then maybe there's something to worry about there. But I have full confidence. Like he's a smart guy. You can see it in the way he plays the game. Like he's not stupid. I just think that he needs to calm down and realize that he has more space than he thinks, which the NCAA after the CHL is a great place to realize that. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the pick at 20th overall, which was a little more surprising. And I think a lot of people were like, I've never heard of this dude, and that's bad. But that's not necessarily the case. So we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to talk about Pyotr Andreyanov. First, I'm going to tell you about Game Time. Have you ever decided that at the last minute that you want to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be in the stands? Well, that's exactly where Game Time comes in. It is the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. And with the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes all of that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. You can see the seats right in the app before you buy. Like I love to get to a game and realize, oh, there's a big pillar in my way, and I can avoid that without having to worry about it. Game Time makes it so easy, and I love the fact that if I find tickets in my section and row for less, they will credit me 110% of the difference and have the most flexible customer service policy in the industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking all about the draft. The Blue Jackets had a really solid pick at 14, and there was a bunch of players available at 20 that I was like, oh, this might be the guy, right? Like Lyndon Lakovic, who I talked about. Blake Fiddler was available. Logan Hensler was available. Like there was a ton of guys that I thought, oh, okay, this might be the guy, right? And it turns out it was none of them. They didn't even go. They went out of left field and took a goalie. They did not take the goalie that everyone expected them to. Everyone thought that Joshua Ravensbergen was going to be the first goalie taken. I talked about him earlier in the week. Enormous goalie, plays for the Prince George Cougars. Extremely good young goalie. The Blue Jackets did not pick him. They picked Pyotr Andreyanov, who is some of those things. What surprised me most was that he's not huge. Again, Don Waddell loves to draft size, but interestingly, the smaller players that he's drafted over the past couple of years have been goalies. So he picked Evan Gardner last year, who is 6'1", 6'2". This year, he picked Andreyanov, who is, again, 6'2". Kind of a big guy for a goalie. 6'2" and 207 pounds is stout for a goalie. I feel like at that height, you really want to see them coming in at like under, sub 200 to 190-ish. But like that's not necessarily a knock against him. He might just be a broad guy. But despite that, he's actually pretty physical. And by which I mean he's athletic is probably the better word for it than physical. He's not out to like throwing his weight around, but he is a very reactive goalie. And I kind of always liken that to kind of like a cat with a laser pointer style. You know, he's not a goalie that's just going to stand there and let the puck hit him. He's going to react. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing. Like his athleticism is definitely his big what's the word I want? His big pro. Like his big draw is that he's extremely athletic. Which is again shocking for a 210-pound guy, but he's quick. Again, shocking for a guy that's almost 210 pounds, but he does tend to be adventurous. Let's say in true Blue Jackets goalie tradition, he does just like to throw his stick around sometimes, not in rage, just like sometimes he's like, I don't need this. And we'll get rid of it, which is fun, but also stressful. And I do think that maybe we should look into patenting some kind of Columbus Blue Jackets elastic wristband that if he throws his stick away, it just kind of boomerangs back to him. That's probably illegal, but like the rate at which Blue Jackets goalies throw their stick away feels wild. And apparently they've picked another one. He does also like to get creative when he's like away from the net, so like behind. When he's behind the goal line, adventures abound. Not the strongest stick handler in the world, but I feel like so few goalies are that I'm not necessarily willing to put that in like the big red box that says this is a red flag. I do think that he needs to lose a little bit of weight. I think he's going to get even better if he does that. I don't know how easy that is. Again, like if you look at pictures of him, like he looks stout. He doesn't look necessarily like he's got some extra weight on him that can just kind of like melt off. But I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a like doctor. This is just me kind of looking. I'm like, oh, well, he's not like fat, he's just broad. He might just be a broad guy. And like, again, that's not the worst thing in the world. At the very least, you fill up more of the net, right? He's another player kind of like Smith in terms of like what I want to see him work on is do less. And this is, again, you see this with young goalies all the time, right? And this is a criticism that I had of Ravensburger as well. Do less. You don't need to do all that to make the save, right? He gets adventurous. He gets, I would call it maybe a little bit melodramatic or overdramatic. Sometimes he gets kind of flaily. It's very reminiscent of like a Jonathan Quick style goaltending, right? And Jonathan Quick was one of the best goalies in the world for a time, right? Not that I'm saying this kid's going to turn into Jonathan Quick, but there's value in having a player like Carey Price, right? Who is so calm and makes everything look super easy. And there is value in having a goalie like Jonathan Quick, who, not the biggest guy in the world, not the most solid guy in the world, but makes the save, right? And I think Andreyanov definitely falls into that latter category. I will say the thing that it doesn't concern me necessarily, but it does, again, continue to surprise me is goalies are typically 3 to 4 years away from the NHL maximum. From the sounds of things, Andreyanov is 5 years away. He is under contract in the KHL until 2030, so he'll be 22, 23 by the time that contract comes up, which sounds scary, but then you look at like the age of goalies when they start to make impacts in the NHL, right? Like young goalies that start to make impacts, like Yaroslav Askarov was, I believe, a 2020 draft pick. Dustin Wolf was also of a similar time. They're two young goalies that have just kind of come into the league now. Jet Greaves is 23, I think. He's only really started to make his impact. Like, you're not going to get a goalie before the age of 22, typically speaking, right? There are some that surprise you, but generally speaking, a goalie is going to be 22, 23 before he's ready to be an NHLer. And it sounds like he's going to be playing men's hockey over there, which is good. He's going to be making a big push for probably not the KHL, but the VHL, which is their AHL equivalent. He's played exclusively junior hockey up until this point, which is maybe a little bit concerning, but not like a huge red flag. Again, he's 18 years old. Like, yeah, he's played. People get like weird about Europeans that play junior hockey, as if 65% of all of Canadian players play junior hockey before the draft, and that is not pro hockey, right? Anyway, he is going to compete for a job with the pros this year. There's a couple of guys in the line ahead of him, but he's right there in terms of competing, right? He's owned by his rights are owned by CSKA Moscow. I would imagine that he will not get a ton of ice time with them. I wonder if they'll do the Sergei Ivanov thing. I wonder if they'll send him somewhere else. Who knows? But he is a guy that is a ways away from the NHL. That's not necessarily a bad thing. All goalies are a ways away. I think actually I saw when I was I woke up this morning, I was kind of scrolling on Twitter. Someone was like, "Oh, the broadcast last night said that Joshua Ravensbergen was 7 years away from being an NHL option." So if Andreyanov is 5 years away from being an NHL option, that's not a bad thing, right? And again, look at the goalies that the Blue Jackets have had. Like Elvis was 24, 25 when he came over. Tarasov, I think, again, was 23, 24. Like, that's about the age that you're going to start seeing returns from your goalies. Now, that being said, there is kind of a downside to that, which is I don't know necessarily why you would take a player that you're not going to see for 5 years in the first round. But I have some thoughts on that. We're going to take another quick break, and then we'll wrap up the rest of my thoughts on Andreyanov and also the draft as a whole in just a second here at Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about Monarch Money. Do you ever wish that managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings, planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And it's more than just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to building your money, you're also building wealth. I love Monarch Money because it means that I can do everything all in one app. It doesn't mean that I have to go to my banking app and then to my budgeting app and then to a spreadsheet that I've made myself on Excel because nowhere else has the right templates. Then I have to go back to my banking app. And then honestly, sometimes I just get a pen and paper. So like being able to do it all in Monarch has been great. Do what I did. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 50% off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. My one thing I wanted to finish off by talking about Andreyanov real quick is this was a confusing pick for a lot of people, right? And I'm not as mad about it as some people seem to be. I am still kind of confused for a couple of reasons. One, picking a project player in the first round is always kind of a choice to me. The second is there were a lot of players that were still on the board at that point that I thought the Blue Jackets would be in on. Like, I thought that they would be all over Bill Zanon, who is a huge right wing. I thought they would be all over Logan Hensler, who, for me, was one of the better defensemen in the draft that, again, I also thought would be gone by 14. So the fact that he made it to 23 is kind of surprising. Lyndon Lakovic, I thought, would have been a great pick for the Blue Jackets as well. There was the hometown kid, Sacha Boumedienne. There was the other goalie, Joshua Ravensbergen. Like, there was guys like Colin Potter, who was not going to be picked. Blake Fiddler still on the board, which surprised me. Like, there was a lot of players that I thought would have had value that the Blue Jackets would be interested in, but it sounds like they wanted A, a goalie, and B, they wanted specifically this goalie. Now, here's the thing. The Blue Jackets do not have a second or a third round pick this year, which is kind of their own doing a little bit, right? Like, I believe this is the second round pick that is with Philadelphia, I believe. And the third round pick they just sent to Colorado in the Charlie Coyle trade. So if they wanted Andreyanov that bad and they thought that he was going to be a second or a third round pick, like, I wondered if there was value in moving back from 20, getting an asset to do so. You know, I believe. Who moved back after the Blue Jackets did? I believe the Penguins moved back. The Penguins moved back a couple of times, I feel like, and then moved up. The Predators, I believe, also got an extra pick. But it sounds like 29 was available from Carolina. It sounds like the Kings would have given up an asset to move back as well. Confusing to me. I wonder if they knew that San Jose was taking a goalie at 30th and wanted to make sure that they didn't take their goalie. And so they're like, let's just take the pick now and be done with it. I don't know. But I understand on one hand taking a pick if you're not picking until the 4th and you don't think your guy's going to be there, like you might as well take the pick, especially if there's no one else on that list that you're really high on. But it does feel a little bit like not the best kind of asset management, right? Which I think has kind of was the story of yesterday was questionable asset management, right? Like giving up to take on Colorado's cap dump, questionable. Picking a guy at 20th that probably would have been there in the 2nd or 3rd round, and you could have, gotten, if you'd given up 20 to get, a 2nd and a 3rd from like, I don't know, like Nashville maybe, or like Pittsburgh possibly, like that could have been an option. I'm not saying that we should make a trade with Montreal, but giving Montreal a chance to get back into the 1st round and taking a bunch of their later picks. Like there was options. Maybe they weren't options. Maybe this was the best way to get the guy that they wanted, but definitely confusing. Like I had a bunch of tabs open for guys that I thought were going to go. And then Meredith said Andreyanov's name, and I was like, oh, let me just do a quick Google to pull him up because I did not have him on my radar. Like he was the number 1 ranked goalie, but he was the number 1 ranked international goalie, which is not nothing, right? I don't know off the top of my head where he was projected to go in terms of like central scouting, etc. But if you want your guy, you go get your guy, right? And this is going to be one of those ones that probably in a couple of years we'll know if it was a good choice or a bad choice. But right now it's a big question mark, right? We'll see. I am always a fan of taking a goalie. I think you can never have too many goalies. And I wonder what this means for later in the draft. Again, the Blue Jackets now, they have a pick in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds as it stands. Will they make more trades today? Entirely possible, right? But we'll see. Overall, like, I think the Jackson Smith pick is an A. I think the Andreyanov pick is a C. So I guess that grades out to like a B for the draft, maybe like a B-. I think the Jackson Smith pick is great. I don't think the Andreyanov pick is bad, but it was a very confusing pick. So we'll kind of, again, we'll meet in the middle, B-, B for this draft for Waddell so far. Not one of the big winners, but also not one of the big losers. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how today goes with the draft, whether there's more moves. Obviously, free agency is coming up as well. So we'll bring you all of the updates as and when things happen. I'd like to think that a Dante Fabro contract extension is going to be the next thing on Waddell's list, but we will see. Thank you for listening. Making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter and LO-Blue Jackets on Blue Sky. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, or potentially Monday, make sure you stay locked on.